Hello and welcome everyone back to a brand new video on the channel. Now today is a slightly different video for myself. It's a bit more of a political real life video than actual gaming. Now on screen you'll see footage of me riding as Jonathan Rea going around Oulton Park on his ZX10. This is the SVK 22 mod on GP Bikes. I will link the track and the bike in the description if you want to check it out. Now today is all about on the unfortunate side of our sport, and that is when we lose riders on track and during race weekends. Now I have some statistics on screen and I'm going to kind of jump back and forth to them, so just bear with me with some of the facts as we get through today's video. But basically, the end of this season we lost a couple of riders in a couple of different categories, and it was just a real bad time. And I remember a period last year where we had something very similar happen. I'm going to get into people's names up first. I'm just going to start with the end of this year. We lost Victor Steeman in the Algarve Grand Prix in the Super Sport 300 class in the World Superbike paddock. We also lost Chrissy Rouse in the Donington Park British Superbike race. Now they were two very close deaths. We also nearly lost Gino Rea in the Suzuka 8 hour. He had a horrific crash in qualifying. Thankfully he is on the mend and still with us, but he was very touch and go from what we were told at the time. It was looking not good for him, but again thankfully he has pulled through and is looking like he's making a good recovery. Now I did mention that it reminded me of a period of the season last year, and I'm just going to scroll up my notes here and I will basically show you a period last year that reminded me very similar. In May 2021 we lost Jason Pasquier at the Grand Prix of Italy in Mugello. He unfortunately succumbed to his injuries in qualifying, a crash with multiple riders involved. And also last year we lost Dean Alberto Vinales. We lost a couple of other riders again now in the lower categories, the European Talent Cup. Hugo Milan is one that comes to mind. Now if I go back over the 10 years in the BSB paddock and the World paddock, there's been 6 deaths. There's been Andrea Antonelli, Moscow Raceway World Supersport Championship in 2013, Mark Fincham, Truxton, BSB Superstock 1000. Of course, I've already mentioned Hugo Milano, unfortunately, in the European Talent Cup in Aragon. Dean Berto Vinales, cousin of Maverick, in Jerez in the World Supersport 300. Chrissy, of course, Chrissy Rouse at Donington last year, and Victor Steedman. Now, the one worry I have here is there's a couple of the last 5 years, the deaths in the 300, the 250s, the single cylinder entry level, kind of the younger rider classes has gone up so much, and there's a reason for that. And I've compared some of my notes with race results from 15 years ago. If you go back to 2006 at Jerez on the 125 race, the top 8 riders are covered by about 40 seconds. You could pretty much get the whole grid within 40 seconds of a modern day Moto 3 race or a modern day Super Sport 300 race. The bike's just so, I don't want to say easy to ride because that it takes away from the skill, but they're so similar and that the riders can get only so much out of them that they're not able to get away from each other. We end up with these kind of train races, and if anyone crashes, the chances of them being collected by another bike just goes through the roof. And unfortunately that is a big part of the modern day incidents, that when riders crash in front of other people they get collected, and that is unfortunately how most deaths at the moment in the sport are happening. For me, the bigger classes it's less likely to happen. Now again, unfortunately we lost Chrissy Rouse in the 1000cc super sport or super bike category. Again, unfortunately it was just one of those incidents where he was collected by another rider, and it's usually internal injuries that gets him, and that is just a terrible way to see someone go, really. But unfortunately for the superbike classes there's not really anything to do because it's just bad luck in a lot of cases. Marco Simoncelli, again, he crashed in front of other riders, unfortunately that's what happened. Showa Tomozawa in Misano 2010 crashed in front of other riders. It's always the same. A rider crashes in front, the riders behind can't get out of the way, and a rider getting collected has very little chance of surviving it. And unfortunately we do lose more than we save when this happens, and I want to more focus on the kind of lower classes, the Moto 3 and the Super Sport 300 classes. For me, like I was mentioning, the bikes are too close. They need to change the bikes. Now they brought the age limit up in these categories up by a couple of years. There's a couple of riders that got into the category this year that were probably not ready just because they were getting in ahead of the age reductions and stuff like that. But I don't believe it's anything to do with the rider's age. A crash can happen at any time. They're all going to be on their limit. It is the kind of Grand Prix level racing. No one's going to be kind of coasting around there. So bringing them slightly older in, probably in my opinion, won't make any difference. The crashes will still happen, these bad situations will happen. What we kind of need, in my opinion, is slightly more powerful bikes. John McPhee was quoted saying this after Jason Dupasqui's death last year, that we need more power. More power will separate it, because the more talented riders will be able to get more out of the bike with more power. The reason why you see bigger gaps in the bigger categories is because a lot of the time you have more power, it's more of a skill gap, and then you get slightly more spread out races, but in overall they are safer. Now, does that fix everything? No, because these incidents will not stop happening ever, in my opinion, because early laps of a race, the first few laps in qualifying, just a mishap in practice, they can still happen at all times. And unfortunately, we're never really going to get this sport as safe as we personally would like it, but it is still interesting, and I would be very, very interested to hear what some of the viewers would have in some suggestions, basically, what we could do going forward, what the FIM and Dorna and all the kind of Grand Prix associations around the world could do to maybe slightly improve it. Like, I don't believe many of the tracks are unsafe. Some of the BSB tracks are scary, in my opinion. Oulton Park, as we're looking at now, is one of them. Cadwell. There's a few tracks that maybe in times in the future we mightn't even go there anymore, but for now they're still on the calendars for their respective categories. But if we look at the Grand Prix level, so there's no tracks I'd say that MotoGP go to that are unsafe. The last time I can remember issues with an unsafe track was they were complaining about Austria, and they made the changes now. It kind of ruined the track, but safety will always come first. But I think the big issue there wasn't that they ruined the flow of the track, it's just they kind of did a poor job of it. They put a chicane somewhere where they really could have done a better job, in my opinion, more of a flowing sector, but it's done now, and kind of it definitely is safer, but it was just not really happy at the time. But if you go through the Superbike paddock, the GP paddock, nearly every track has to be at a certain level, kind of a grade 3 FIM grade, I believe it is what is known as. They have to have X amount of runoff in certain parts of the track. There's so many little things you have to tick a box for it to be on the grid and on the calendar. So for a lot of it, it isn't the track. The riders, best riders in the world, that they can't really be blamed for making mistakes. They're on the limit at all time. Also, the marshals are some of the best marshals around the planet that we have, so it's more a fact that it's just unfortunate the racing at sometimes is too good and the riders are too close and these incidents happen. So the rise in recent years can be put down to that, but really, will it be ever fixed? I do not know. Now, I'm going to end it there. I really want some feedback in the comments from yourselves to let me know what you believe could be done and what you make of today's video. But I'm going to end it there. I hope you have enjoyed, and I shall catch y'all in the not so distant future. Thank you for watching. See you soon.